What's up guys, welcome to the video. And this one's gonna be a really special one. Today, I'm talking to Adam, who's one of my clients in the FBA Freedom Accelerator program. And he's not a typical client or a typical student. Adam has had massive success on Amazon in a very short period of time. He's actually grown his business from nothing to $1 million in less than a year, in 8 months actually. So Adam's had incredible success on Amazon, and I really wanted to get him here on the channel so that he could share the story behind that success. So whether you're on the outside looking to start your first Amazon business, or whether you're already scaling one up to the 7-figure mark, I guarantee you're gonna find at least one nugget in this video that will change the way you think about selling on Amazon. So please enjoy this very special conversation with Adam. All right, Adam, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being on the channel today. Yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Appreciate it, brother. Good to see you.
Awesome. So I want you to start off by just giving us a little bit of background about you. So who is Adam? Where are you from? And take us back to before you started selling on Amazon. So like, who were you, and then where did you come from to actually get to where you are today?
Cool. Sounds good. Well, maybe I'll describe the accent in case anybody picks it up. So I'm actually originally from Canada. I moved to the US, gosh, I think it's like 13 years ago. So I spent about 11 years in Texas, and I've been in Park City, Utah for about 2 or 3 years. So that's a little bit of my personal background. I went to business school and university, so I have a bit of a business background, spent most of my kind of life pre-Amazon in the energy business. So mainly on the electricity and infrastructure side. So that's kind of my background from a career standpoint. Before Amazon and kind of getting into Amazon and the lead, I think I probably took a bit of a backdoor, certainly not the most traditional route. I had some Shopify businesses way back in the day before it was even a thing. I think it was probably, like 2007, 8, I had a Shopify store. So I had like it was like actually a hockey apparel line called Grinder Thread. So I did that. And this is like, before all the cool tools and all this stuff. So I kind of figured out e-com like early days in that. So it was like my first side hustle. And I always had some things on the side, even when I had my corporate jobs. But on the Amazon front, I was working for a company, actually still do. And it was, we were doing M&A, and that was kind of a big part of my job, mainly buying electricity companies. And we started to discover in the electricity world that like customers, don't like electricity companies. It's like, it's basically like a power bill that they would get every month. And in the US, there's 13 states that are deregulated, and you can kind of choose your electricity provider. So we were looking for ways like, how do we differentiate? Like all we're basically doing is sending people a bill. And so we started looking at like physical products that we could get into. We started doing things with like Nest thermostats was one of the big like tie-ins that we had. So you buy electricity, you get a Nest thermostat when they came out, and it was pretty successful. So we ended up buying a physical products company is kind of what happened. And I was involved in that transaction, and then got tapped on the shoulder. That business is actually in Utah. So that's what brought me to Utah, and got tapped on the shoulder to kind of help run that business. And that was kind of my first deep dive into product world and in Amazon in general.
So yeah, that's definitely like, it's probably not the typical story, but it's super interesting that you like fully old school. I can't even remember what I was doing back in 2007. Well, that's when I literally started studying. So I was a uni student. So, all right. So you came into it from a different angle, and then you came into it while you were working a job. What led you to actually starting your own Amazon business?
Yeah. So I think like first of all, like as I was kind of getting integrated in that company that we bought, and kind of, when you do an acquisition, it's like you've got a growth case, right? And you've got to be able to kind of make your money back on what the multiple is that you paid. So one of the big things that we were doing was kind of digging in and figuring out where you're turning over rocks to see where uncovered value is, right? So there's operational efficiencies, there's things that you can do on the margin side, there's, product strategy stuff, there's sales strategy stuff. So we were kind of looking at the gamut, and my goal was to basically turn over all the rocks and see where the value was. At the time, that business was doing about $3 million a year on Amazon, mainly a retail business, but Amazon was a decent chunk of the business. But it was 1P. So I know 1P is like different than most private label sellers are familiar with. But in the 1P universe, basically Amazon buys your product from you almost like a retailer. So once a week, you get an order from Amazon. They say, hey, ship us this amount. There's an ACE, and all that stuff exists like normal, but it's basically fulfilled by Amazon, and you're not having to manage the listing or anything like that. Problem with that though is that you're giving up almost double the margins. So it was kind of, we looked at the scratch math on it, and I was like, holy shit, excuse my French if we need to blurb that out, but
so good.
Like we could double the margins on this Amazon channel. Plus, this was 3 years ago when you could kind of see Amazon was becoming more and more of a thing. It wasn't going to stay flat; it was going to grow. And then if you could double the margins on top of that, so I'm like, look, I think it makes sense for us to flip the switch and go 3P. In addition to that, we had probably 8 sellers from all these various retailers that we sold to, like mom and pop retailers throughout the US, that were basically only selling on Amazon. So there was about $1 million a year that these like third-party sellers were jumping on the listing and kind of making money that way. So we cleaned that up. But the problem is to go flip from 1P to 3P, you got to understand Amazon all of a sudden. So like you got to send in your own inventory, you got to market it, you got to manage the listing, you got to have pay-per-click. So it's a lot more self-managed. So through that process, it was just a kind of a deep dive into the Amazon ecosystem, what it entailed, what it took to run a 3P business. We took that from 3 million to I think it's about 10 million now. So that whole journey kind of exposed the Amazon opportunity to me. And I'm like, well, shoot, it's not rocket science. Why don't I do this myself? And then that led me to building a couple, I've got now 4 other brands that I built kind of solo, and 2 of those at the 7-figure mark. So it's just, discovered that it's fun as heck to build Amazon businesses as a result. So
that's nuts, man. And like, I think it's really good to get this different perspective, because I know most people are coming in from this other side, like where I came from, where I didn't know anything about Amazon at all. You're just like doing your job or whatever, but you got to actually experience it from this other side. And like you said, turning over rocks to like uncover, where's a different way of making money or doing something that is not yet, like it's not yet cool or it's not yet known. So you had that, like, I don't know, I don't want to say like the advantage or whatever, but like you were able to see that from a very different angle, which is really cool. So you saw that, like turning these rocks over and like, oh, hey, this is working for the company that I'm working at. I can do it myself. And you say it's like super fun to do. Did you jump in straight away, or was there a delay? Like, was there something holding you back, or like, what was that thought process as you started to realize that like, hey, I can do this?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think it was a confluence of things that was just like the perfect storm. I think like anything in life, things kind of just, I believe that things kind of stack up like dominoes for a reason. Sometimes, adversity stacks up for a reason. Sometimes you kind of get aligned on things for a reason. I think it was a combination of things. It was discovering the platform. I kind of knew it was a thing, but didn't understand the mechanics of Amazon. So, that side of it kind of like pushed me in the Amazon. The other thing was I was running a lot of the operations and supply chain and trying to figure out vendors. We went from, with that business, 25 factories down to 8. So I was going to China a couple times a year and understanding the Chinese world. I was in WeChat. Like that whole world was completely new to me. Product margin. So I had a deep dive into kind of physical products and how what it took to run a large scale operation. So I think the combination of that side of things, plus the Amazon thing, plus just this itch of, I think like all of us feel, right, where it's just like, it was an amazing job making like really good money, really cool brand, living in the mountains in Utah, like you couldn't beat it. Like most people would be like, man, why are you complaining? And I wasn't complaining, but there was something missing. You know what I mean? There's like that itch where you're just like, look, you see success around you, and it's maybe it comes from jealousy. I don't know if it's jealous, but you kind of look at people who are like, look, if these people are doing it, like, why not me? Like there was that question of why not me that kind of had always been there in my life. And so I think it was just like, look, if there's ever going to be a time, you just got to like, now's the time to do it. You've got the knowledge, you've got the experience, you've got capital to kind of push the chips on this thing. So I was like, let's push the chips in, and kind of discover that. Can I answer the question of why not me was kind of what irked at me. So that's how I'd describe it all coming together.
That's pretty awesome. I think because you come from this from a different angle, but I think what you just described, that feeling is something that probably, I think a lot of the people that are watching this can probably relate to. I know I can relate to that. And that is irrespective of, what type of background you come from, what country you come from, what type of job you're working. It's just like this. It's like part of the human psyche, I
agree.
And I feel like Amazon, or at least like these ways that we can just start businesses for ourselves super easy, allows people living today to like fulfill this human psyche aspect. This is really weird to talk about. But it's like that, why not me? Or like you said, like you weren't complaining, but there's just this sort of there's something missing. And this is like a way of like, if not getting there, at least answering the question of like, can I get there?
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I was kind of like, I was content with not succeeding either. Like I believed that I had the elements to succeed and all this, but I was just like, you know what? I just want to swing the bat hard and go for it. And like, if it all falls apart, then it falls apart. Like, I'm comfortable with that. I'd kind of dedicated the amount of money I was willing to sacrifice to go at it. But yeah, luckily it came together. I mean, honestly, my first product was I called it a failure. I broke even on it, kind of thing, similar to your first product. Wasn't successful. So I was like, okay. So I'm like, I'll do one more. I was kind of like, I'll do one more. And if not, I'll go back to my kind of, cushy salary and not worry about kind of doing entrepreneurship again. But yeah, it all worked out. And, I count my luck every day, and it's just been a heck of a journey and fun. So
I almost want to like time out there, because it's like so many people, they get to that stage and they either don't realize that, the first part is like, you learn from that one. And that one maybe fails. Maybe you get your money back. You don't make any money. You put all this effort in. But firstly, you're going to work out, like, is this something for me? Do I like this? Like my first product failed, like yours. I was like, this is cool. Like, I'm going to try again. I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people just don't have that expectation. So it's nice to see another person be like, I had that problem as well, but I got over it. I knew that I had to get over it. And like, your success speaks for itself. So
and I think go ahead. No, you go ahead. No, go ahead, man.
So I want to jump to some like challenges that, again, people who are not necessarily in your shoes, but sort of like the average person who's looking at Amazon FBA. And the most common challenges, I think one really common challenge is they see how much money you can make. They see that you can get over these relatively small humps and like change your life. But a lot of people are just stuck there at the start because they know it's about finding the product, right? Would you agree? Or do you think that finding the product is one of the most important parts of the puzzle?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the one thing and I think I probably made this mistake at various points, and I think we all have, I think there's just, it's easy to get overwhelmed by it because while it's a simple concept, it's a simple business model, there are a lot of moving parts. And it's just like, I remember literally I had the original business went from like 3 to maybe 5 million. So I had a $5 million like Amazon portfolio underneath me, and I had never made a shipment before. Like, that's in the Amazon
that you worked for.
Yeah. So I'd like, there's these weird little things that scare you and like kind of almost make you question yourself. You're like, I was overwhelmed by literally setting up a shipment, and then there's like, well, how do I like reach out to a supplier on Alibaba? And like, how do I download WeChat? Like, there's all these incremental little things that are not difficult, but they cause anxiety, I think, or they make you kind of question, like, can I really put this thing all together? So I think the biggest mistake that people look at is I think they judge the success of other people and kind of mirror that on themselves and put undue pressure on themselves when you got to realize like there's steps that you got to take to get there. But the other thing is just trying to take it all in at once. And if you try to take it all in at once, it will overwhelm you. So I think it's like breaking the business and the journey up into digestible chunks, right? So like, you've got to have a baseline set of knowledge that you've got to get to launch an Amazon business. And then you've got to kind of dive into product research, which you meant like, look at that segment. Like, first, you can worry about how to get to like 1,000 reviews later. You can worry about running 4 different external traffic sources to rank a product later. Like, there's, that stuff exists, but don't digest too much information too early, and make sure that you take action on the step that you've got to take next. It's like, I always try to keep this theme in my head, which is like, next things next. Like, yes, that stuff is on the list, but like, these are the 3 things I need to do today. These are the 10 things I need to do this week. And like, it's like that consistent chip away action at the next thing you've got to do, while keeping in context the whole ecosystem, like, and not forgetting about it. Like, that's what I would say. I think a lot of people just get down the rabbit hole too early, and they get overwhelmed, and then they basically freeze up. And then there's this inability to take action because there's so much anxiety and confusion that it just kind of locks people up. So that'd be my recommendation. And one of the things I think has helped me is just when you keep your head down, you focus on the next thing and chip away at it with action. And you add that up over, a couple of years, and it snowballs into something cool.
I like the next thing is next. I like that. I've got my one that I'm using is keep the main thing the main thing. It's good to have these like simple little slogans that really do, in a completely outsized, it's like a leverage way of just like focusing your mind on whether it's the next thing is next, or keep the main thing on what matters, as you said. And then it's just like knocking one block off at a time.
Yep.
So that was a really great answer. What about even more specifically? So it's about like focusing down and just focusing on like understanding you've got to get all these steps in line, doing the next thing. I think if there's one single point in that process in starting an Amazon business that where people just stop, whether or not they think, I know I'm just doing the main thing or the next thing, they get stuck, is picking that first product. And specifically, like you said, having that fear and anxiety to move forward. And I would call that analysis paralysis, where you've got information, you've learned the process maybe, or you think you have, you're looking for a product, maybe you've got some, and you're stuck. Analysis paralysis. I think people watching this, I'm sure 50% of the people watching this have experienced this if they're not there right now. So what would you say to someone, Adam, who's got analysis paralysis right now? They're trying to find their first product, but they're paralyzed with fear.
Yeah. I think there's two different things that I would recommend and I use. First of all, is to understand worst case scenario. I always like to think about that. Like, if this went completely wrong, what does that look like financially? What does it look like in terms of time burden? What am I giving up if this goes wrong? And so I like to look at that both from a margin perspective, like if in the amount that's dedicated to a new launch, but also just in terms of like, how would I feel about things worst case? And oftentimes worst case is when you really like kind of put pen to paper and start running the math on it and like thinking through the dynamics of a failure, it's not that bad. So when you realize that it's like, hey, the worst case scenario is like not the end of the world, that gives you a lot more confidence. So I'd say that number one. The second thing I would say is that you're never going to be 100% sure on anything. I have a pretty good track record now. I think my batting average is probably over 80% on like finding good products and making them stick and making them profitable in the range that I anticipate. But there's probably still 15, 20% that just aren't quite there yet. So I think you just got to be comfortable with 80% confidence levels. You're never going to be 100%. There's going to be unknowns. There's going to be what ifs. There's going to be shoulda, woulda, couldas throughout the process. If you get to that 70, 80% confidence level, like, hey, I've digested the information. I've needed to be educated about this. I've got what I think is a pretty good option, and you're about 70, 80% there, go for it. Understand the downside, make sure you're comfortable with that, and then go for it and take action and get after it. I think those two spectrums are things that help guide my decision-making. Because if you wait for perfection, it's you're going to freeze up. And if you don't fully realize that the worst case scenario isn't that bad, then it alleviates a lot of the fear as well. So that'd be my recommendations.
Absolutely. I got nothing to add to that. Oh, one thing, considering the worst case scenario, this is for anyone else watching this. If you want to Google and have this like laid out as like, how do you actually do that step by step? I recommend looking up fear setting. It's called fear setting. It's by Tim Ferriss. So he just lays out a method to do that. But absolutely, like, understand your worst case. If that's like not too bad, or even if you can put a positive spin on it, like, hey, the worst case is, I'm going to break even. Maybe it's worse than that. Maybe I'm going to lose a bit of money, and that's the money that I'm going to pay to learn a whole bunch of really cool stuff about a new business model, about myself. Like, I mean, you pretty much do anything if that's your worst case. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome answer though.
Yeah.
So that's what I think that's one of the main challenges that people have. And I think you answered that, like how to respond to that beautifully. I'd say another challenge that probably a lot of people are having right now, whether they're selling on Amazon or whether they're looking at selling on Amazon, is uncertainty due to COVID-19. So I think a lot of people, this is another fear, is like, particularly if you're on the outside looking in, like so much has just changed in the last couple of months. Now they're thinking, it's impossible to start, or I've been hearing this a lot, is like, well, I should just sit back on the sidelines and just let this whole thing sort itself out. And maybe I'll come back to this, in a year or 2 years or whatever. So I guess there's maybe a couple of questions, but what's your perspective, Adam, of selling right now in the midst of this crisis? I'm going to start with, that's question one.
Sure. So, I mean, there's definitely some nuances, and I would definitely recommend that you check out Myles' video. He talks pretty well about some of the things to consider related to COVID in terms of product research and some other things. So that's definitely real, and you got to understand those dynamics. But the way I look at Amazon in general and e-com as a whole is, you just like, first of all, like, what tide are you on and what boat are you in? And like, if you look between now and 2025, there's still going to be double the amount of e-commerce shopping over the next 5 years. Like, if you look at the projections, and each year is getting incrementally more. I think that this event throughout the world has taken even some of the folks that were on the sidelines that maybe never ordered groceries online or never sign up for a Prime account as an example. And those people that were even on the sidelines, they're getting scooped in faster than before. So I actually think that while there's definitely going to be some real consequences from an economic standpoint and a buying power standpoint over the next probably 18 months, and we don't know truly what that is yet, I think the number of people that are now shopping online and on Amazon, and the number that are going to over the next couple of years is going to be significantly higher to cover that loss. So I honestly think it's better than it was last year, frankly, to be on Amazon. For a couple of reasons. One, it's growing. I think there's more people shopping, even if there is economic impact. And it is going to rattle some cages. I call it the wantrepreneurs, like the folks that are out there for the quick buck. They're going to be locked up and scared and not ready to capitalize because they feel like it's not going to be easy anymore. So I feel like the combination of those two variables, I think there's going to be less sellers willing to go at it. And I think that the market's growing. So I think the combination of those two, I'm actually pretty pumped about it. I think it's actually a better time than it was the last couple of years to get in on Amazon.
So someone is on the sidelines right now, haven't started yet. Should they start or should they wait?
I mean, I think if you've got a secure financial situation and you've got a little bit of a buffer there, I think so. And I think it's also proven that even the safest of jobs isn't safe. I think that would be another exclamation point. So I think that's probably another thing that's made people realize, hey, if you're going to control your destiny, now's the time to control your destiny. Like it's not, no one's life or job is a given for them. And you've got to kind of take and own your own life and path. So yeah.
Absolutely. It is. I think it's definitely rocked a lot of people's worlds. And I think a lot of people are going to realize, if they haven't realized already, like I'm not in as much control as I thought I was, but there are ways that I can take that control for myself. And in my honest opinion, Amazon is one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah.
So what's been the highlight of building your Amazon business so far?
Oh, that's a good question. Selfishly, I just think the personal satisfaction of like seeing it, like the visceral, like, holy crap, this is this thing now. I mean, it's still surreal to me, honestly. There's probably the odd day where maybe it's not surreal, but most days, honestly, when I flick that little screen and look at it, I'm just like, pinch me, like, is this real life? So I think just the satisfaction of seeing something start from nothing and realizing that it was my actions that created this and put this out there. You can't really beat that. My father was an architect. My grandfather was a master carpenter. I spent my life wheeling through spreadsheets and like corporate life. And so there's something about that like builder that I think is in my DNA that comes from my grandfather and my father that was like, go build something on your own. And while this is,
for yourself as well.
Exactly. This isn't like brick and mortar stuff, but it's like, it's pretty cool to see something get built. The other thing that I would say too is just seeing like, building a team out, seeing and sharing success with the factories on the products that have really blown up for us and seeing what that's done to their business. I mean, I've got a couple of factories that we probably do 40% of their business a year out of the factory. So like the lives that you impact, whether it be employees or the business relationships that you forge with different folks, that part of it's super cool too. So yeah, I think it's just like that creating and that itch to build something yourself is really cool.
I love that response. I think the reason why most of us probably start, oftentimes it's very money driven. It's very numbers like, hey, look at, $1 million in 8 months. Like, wow, amazing. But there's actually all these things behind it, which are really like, sounds a bit trite to say it, but like they're kind of priceless. So all the things that you just mentioned, like I never thought I would have people working for me, and I never thought that would be a great, immense source of satisfaction, but it is. And yeah, there are ways of doing it, and Amazon's one of them. It's really cool. Have you ever interacted with your Amazon customers, like not through Amazon, but like seeing your product out in the wild sort of thing, like in real life?
Yeah, so it's funny. So one of my, actually the recent brand that I started in December is a bit more of a passion project, which maybe we can get into later about some of the stuff. But like this idea of like, look, I didn't find these products based on some like helium-10 black box criteria that I threw in. It was literally like thinking about the customer in mind. So So that one is a little bit based on one of my personal passions. And it was funny. I would be a customer of this product and this business and this brand. And I'm in some of these Facebook groups where some of these enthusiasts reside and where the community resides. And I saw somebody post about our product, like, hey, came across this new brand. It's a great alternative to XYZ, which are bigger brands in the space. Like, you guys should check that out. And I was just like, that's freaking cool. So I haven't like shook someone's hand necessarily and like met them in person, but I had that interaction. And then I had another customer that realized that we were based in Park City that lives literally like 3 minutes away from me that actually came through one of our review funnels in Messenger. And anyway, I'm in his neighborhood all the time, and we were just chatting about the local stuff. So I think those two experiences were as close as it gets, but it was cool. It was surreal.
That's awesome. For me, one of my milestones building my business it was pretty soon after I started, like 8 months in, maybe a year in. And I was in Hawaii, and I think I was just hiking around, like hiking up mountains and like on holidays. First time I'd been to the US ever. And first time I ever set foot in the US. And yeah, I saw a customer with my product. I was like, that's mine. Yeah. And then I went and talked to them, and like, it was like, holy crap. Like, I'm here because of the money that I'm making through Amazon that this person bought the product from. And then we just met up in Hawaii. It's like, what the hell? Yeah. Anyway, it's crazy. It's crazy to see just the realness of this business, I think is where I'm going with this, if I'm going anywhere. Yeah. So I want to go back a bit, because you talked about, so this is you mentioned your passion product, and particularly product research and using like the one way of doing it, which is just metrics driven. And then the way that you said you found that, and this could go either way here. Cause a lot of people that are going to watch this they're going to be seeing these like product research videos, like, hey, just go on Helium 10, like find these metrics or whatever else. I'm going to throw a more open-ended question to you now, but like, how do you feel about doing it that way versus the way that you did it? And can you explain how you did it as well, how you chose to launch this product versus one that might've just had, whatever metrics in Helium 10? Yeah,
that's a good point. So first of all, like, there's no right or wrong way to do any of this stuff. And there's a lot of different angles and approaches that you can take. And I don't want to say anyone's, it's all contextual based on how much money you have, based on your experience level, based on a whole suite of variables that are hard to quantify into one, this is how you do it method. I've got a home goods brand, and I've used a lot of those tools to research that way. I've got an electronics brand where I've done half and half. This latest passion project is a little bit more on the think about the customer first. I've got a new supplement brand that is very much niche specific about what that kind of customer segment needs. So across the 4 brands, I've kind of done it a number of different ways. What I would say is whatever method you choose, think about how you put your fingerprint on that product, I think is the critical thing. And also think about things differently than the masses of other Amazon sellers are going to think about it. So I'll use maybe Black Box as an example. When I use that Black Box, if you look at most of the criteria that most people look at for that, it's, does it fit in a shoebox? Is it, less than $5? Can you sell it for $15 to $24.99? There's like these set criteria that are typically easier, right? And the math when it works and the ROI when it works is actually really good. So it's not bad advice. But what I like to do is I like to go after stuff that's like over $100. Because I just know that not many people are using those filters. I might go from 500 to 1,000 reviews because I feel like I can still carve out a niche even if I can get this thing to 100 reviews. I go for big stuff. I got a new product that we're launching for the home goods brand that literally requires a 3PL because Amazon will not stock or ship it because it's so big.
The 3PL, just for people who might not be familiar with that term.
Yeah, it's basically a warehouse facility similar to FBA, but you have to pay the storage fee and pay a fulfillment fee to that. So I would just say that have a unique angle to your research method and have a unique angle to the offer that you create. Because if you do the same thing that everybody else does in terms of strategy, and you do the same thing that other folks do in terms of offer, you might be able to win for a period of time, but it's going to catch up to you. And so I think that differentiating both the strategy and approach, and oftentimes it's not like reinventing the wheel, it's just little tweaks and different thought processes. I think the more you can inject your own DNA into your approach, that's where I found the most success and the most kind of greenfield opportunities. So
I wanted just to clarify with, so you said, bigger products, higher priced products, higher reviews. Has that been a deliberate approach? And you may have said that if you did, but have you deliberately gone for only like you're actually looking for what people aren't looking for, or have you been looking across everything and found more opportunities in those areas where there are less people looking because it's high price, too big, whatever?
Both ways, but I've definitely done some deliberate, like, hey, this next wave of products, let's look at this kind of a criteria that will be differentiated from what most people are doing. And it's uncovered more opportunities, frankly, too, just because when you use that unusual criteria, you're like, there's a lot more really cool opportunities here as well. So
the way I like to think about that is everything's like a barrier. It's just a question of what barriers 100%. Can you jump over that not many people want to or can jump over. And effectively high price point, it might scare people off just because, they're not using the filters, but also it all generally means you're going to have a product that costs more, right? So it's just like, can I invest a bit more money into this product because I've got a good track record? Yeah. Same with oversized stuff like that. It just scares people off.
Yeah. And it's not like, there's even other little stuff like they're barriers, but they're not as hard as people, I think, make them out to be. Like they're incremental barriers. Yeah. You'll face way more barriers when like you really get in the ring and like, stuff starts coming your way. There's way more adversity that'll come. But I'm talking about stuff like, sending a link to a 1688 like accessory that costs 20 cents and having your factory be like, hey, I want you to reach out to this 1688 supplier. Here's a link. I want to add this to our offering, right? Like that's not that hard, but it's like the step of having two factories ship stuff to one location and then ship it out to FBA is like that little step is sometimes too much for people. Like having to customize a package element or paying $1,500 for a mold that does something unique to the product. Like it's not rocket science. It's not like crazy difficult, but like those little nuances weed out a ton of folks. So I think wherever you can find opportunities to do that economically and within your skill set, it's certainly valuable for sure.
It's interesting that it's sort of, for a lot of people, and for myself included, it's a counterproductive mentality where it's like you want to take the least steps possible, but actually to get success, you want to take just one more step than what everyone else is taking. And those are the things that you described. One thing that you touched on, you said you were going to launch a product that was, you can get it to compete with 500 products with 500 reviews. You only need to get 100 to compete. So can you explain that a little bit better? What was your approach? Whether you want to be specific or just talk in general terms, if you're going to try and compete in a niche which has a high review count on average, most of your competitors, but you think you can still even outsell them with less reviews, how do you approach that? What's your thought process?
Yeah, well, I think it all starts with kind of another rule of thumb I have, which is incredibly important when you're developing a product, which is why would somebody searching for this search term or this series of search terms, when this is on the front page, why would they select your product? I think that you've got to fundamentally have an answer to that question. And it can't be price, by the way. I think price can be part of it in terms of the value that you create. But I always like to answer that question. So sometimes, there's absolutely an ante. Like if everybody on the front page had 5,000 reviews, like, yeah, you're probably, you could pull it off, but it's going to cost you 30 grand to do it. But in this particular example, there's a whole suite of branded players, which again is like a no-no if you look at most people's criteria of like, don't go after areas where you've got big brand players. But there's a series of brand players, and then there's a series of what I would call really low-priced, kind of value-driven foreign sellers. So the foreign sellers, like the products are still good, but there's something off about it, right? Like the way that the title is written and the verbiage and there's like weird like screenshots of the product. But it's like $30 versus 70. So it's like people will take the risk. And they had, a couple hundred reviews and doing 40 grand a month. And then you had the big daddies that were, 1,000 reviews doing 150 grand a month. But it's basically, they weren't good at Amazon. They had 3 pictures. They had like bullets that described the dimensions of their product. And like, we're basically only winning on people typing their brand terms. So I'm like, look, I can kick the crap out of these guys that are making 40 grand a month, and I can be a reasonable downsell with a legitimate brand, legitimate photos, kind of all those things, but also good at Amazon. So I look at those kind of opportunities where it's like, where I can find a way both with the offer as well as what I bring to the table in terms of Amazon knowledge and brand knowledge to compete with those that have a lot of reviews. And it doesn't work in all niches, right? I mean, this is something that's got to be a little bit situational and contextual, but that's generally been our approach, why we're not afraid of that, because there's definitely opportunities within certain markets where you absolutely can compete with larger players if you've got a good offer and you're thinking about the Amazon/brand elements in the right way.
So what you've just described is a very nuanced approach, I think, where you've got some simple questions like, why would somebody choose my product over the other one? And the answer isn't price. But you're also definitely clearly going further than, again, just looking at the reviews. What would you, if there was like one piece of advice to somebody who they're at that stage where all they're really doing is looking at, for example, Helium 10, the Chrome extension, they're seeing the, average top 10 page one listings, what's the average revenue, what's the average reviews, and they're kind of like sharing screenshots going, hey, like, is this a good niche? You could just summarize like into like one sentence or a couple of sentences. What should that person do next? Or how should they go further? What would be the next step?
Yeah, I think it starts with understanding coming into your research, like what is your budget? Like you've got to understand what you've got to have financially to participate at those different revenue levels. So like, let's say that you type something in and the average like revenue rate is 20 grand a month on that category. Some are maybe doing 70, there's a handful, and then there's a bunch doing 12. But like, first, can you afford it? Because there's no use buying product if you can't buy enough, or you can't fund the launch so that you can actually stick the landing and then have your reorder volume. So I think you've got to have a reality of gravity, like what is your financial? But aside from that, I think it just comes down to offer, right? Like what is the unique thing that you bring to the table that you believe can be differentiated on all those offers? And you don't need to be the best. I think that's the other thing that people maybe get locked up on a little bit, is like, I've got to be top 2 or top 3. You don't necessarily need to be top 2 or top 3. Especially when you look at things like aesthetics and some other things where there's some nuance to it. Like people are sometimes more than happy to scroll down to the middle of the page if you've got a really interesting offer and 12 reviews, if you bring something to the table that's unique. So I don't know if that answers, but.
No, I think that's a great answer. I like pages where there is that sort of aesthetic functionality where you're not just seeing the same thing like the whole way down. Yeah. That to me is like a red flag, but that's a great answer, because I know a lot of people, going back to the analysis paralysis, they're at that analysis paralysis stage because all they can look at is those like high level numbers. But from what you're saying, it sounds like, again, it's about the sort of independent thought going into the actual products. What's the offering? What are they giving to, and to whom are they giving that particular offering to? You touched on capital or knowing how much, being realistic about your budget.
Yeah,
it's going to depend a lot on the product and the niche and the category, but you're talking to whoever's watching this right now. They're looking at starting. Realistic, blunt answer. How much do you think somebody should have to be able to do this successfully, or to not maximize, have a good chance of doing this successfully?
Sure. I'll kind of answer it in 2 ways. Maybe just a quick answer to your question. I think like 10 grand for me is what I would recommend. Can you pull it off with 2? Yes. Can you pull it off with 5? Yes. But I think, if you had 10 grand of capital, and you maybe invested between 3 and 6 grand on your first order, I think that's a healthy kind of budget to come in with. I think things that people don't think about are, and kind of, I think one of the dirty little secrets of Amazon are, it's cash intensive and you've got to dump more money back in before you've brought any money out. And like, I've scaled some 7-figure businesses and like, I don't touch a dime of that stuff. Like, it's not like it's spitting off money, because to grow at that level and to grow to the scale that a lot of people want to achieve, you've got to put money back into the business to buy inventory. So I think 10 grand is like a healthy amount. I think it's pretty difficult to succeed now at a reasonable level with less than 5 for sure. But I think it's also just a recognition that like, hey, I'm going to buy this first product. It's probably going to cost me 1 to 2 grand to launch it. And then if I'm successful, which is good, I'm probably going to be buying that product within the first 2 weeks of when I launch. And, so it's not like you put this 5 grand out there and then all of a sudden it's just raining money for the rest of your Amazon
just doubles.
career. Yeah. It doesn't, it will double, but you're probably going to have to put more money into it to double, and you're not going to be able to touch money for a long time, especially if you want to scale and grow and launch new products. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
So I think that needs to be underlined is it's like you got the actual product cost, or the like cost to start up it's one component of that 10 grand. but you've got a large component, 40%, $4,000, which is firstly sitting on the sidelines, but is there as a buffer, not just a buffer, but then it's there to be able to reinvest and to actually grow faster. Because absolutely, like, particularly right now, as sales are just blowing up on Amazon across a lot of categories, a lot of people who didn't have, or they weren't expecting this cash flow problem, are just like, oh, what? Like, this product is selling well. I'm making money on this first, my first 30 days. It's profit, but I'm not even getting it paid the money back. I'm out of stock, or I'm about to blow out of stock. Like, like stuck. And so I really want to highlight that and underline this is it depends where you want to grow and how quickly you want to get there. But having more money is just like having more money and having the ability or the security to just not touch that for how long would you say?
I think it kind of depends on your growth appetite.
Yep.
And kind of like some people are like, look, if I get this thing to, $30,000 a month top line and I can, spit out $5,000 a month, like that is living life to me. And like, that's fine.
That's 30 revenue, 5 profit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can get to that level, I think pretty easily within 6 to 10 months. I think that's certainly realistic. Yep. I think if you want to start scaling into the 7-figure territory, it's probably a couple of years, like at least in my view, before you can take money out, especially if you want to incrementally continue to grow the business.
Yep.
So that's my experience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We got to 30K pretty quickly, relatively easily. Yeah. Maybe some of that comes down to luck as well, like on your first couple of products, how profitable they go, because you just don't know how much they're going to blow up sometimes.
Yep.
But I didn't take money out for, I think, 18 months.
Yep.
Now our growth level has flattened off a lot. So instead of growing 100% per year, it's maybe like 30% per year. And so I've got a lot of free cash flow, but that first year and a half, I was like, put it all back in as fast as possible, launch more products.
Yeah. I'm a little sadistic too, in the sense that I like launching new ideas, and I don't necessarily have shiny object syndrome, but I see opportunities and I realize that like, hey, these might not be around forever. So I've got a sense of urgency. So I would say if I didn't start these additional brands, I would probably be taking a lot more money out of the business than I have. But I'm just like, look, this is a new cool brand I want to launch, dump money into that. So I've kind of cascaded money even outside of the brands and invested those new opportunities. So, but I think if you didn't do that and you scaled to 7 figures, I think 18 months is probably a good benchmark. Absolutely.
And it's important as well, again, depending on who's watching this and what their goals are. A lot of people are happy to get to 30K per month. And if you're at that level, you have less like overhead and fixed expenses. So like 5K on 30K is pretty low. In my personal opinion, that's a pretty like very easily attainable profit margin. Really easy. And you can get there quite quickly. Still got to do that. Still got to have that money at the start and understand that for some period of time, cash flow is just an issue until you get that product up and running, start launching another one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You can absolutely be a victim of your own success. I'll put it that way. If you don't think through the mechanics of it. Like sometimes like if a product blows up, you'll realize pretty quick, like, oh crap. I need to go see if Chase Bank can give me a loan because I'm not going to be able to fund this next order. I mean, it can get there if you don't do the math. So it's worth the extra time to run the numbers for sure.
That's a good problem to have though. That's
100%.
As far as problems go, it's a good one to have.
Yeah.
So I had a question and then I think I've lost it. Let's move on. What is motivating you right now? Or better put, where do you want to go from here? So you've obviously had a lot of success in a pretty short period of time, very short period of time. What does the future look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I have a pretty simple kind of set of things I want to go after, and I'm honestly quite content right now. So I don't necessarily kind of have that like binding itch. I think I still have this desire, not for financial reasons anymore. I think that's one thing that becomes real. I did come into this partially for money, and that's still an element of motivation for me. But financially, I don't feel like I need to do a whole lot more other than just the satisfaction of kind of that like ingrained competitiveness, which is like, let's see how far this thing will go. So I think that's probably my motivation, which is just like, hey, what's the next thing that I can do to grow and develop these businesses and grow and develop as a person. So I'd like to like take the newest 2 brands like big. Like I want to get those to 8-9 figure brands potentially, omni-channel retail, get outside of Amazon. So that's probably the next itch I want to scratch, which is can I grow a big omni-channel brand? That's part of it. And then the other one is just like, I've got simple motivations. I've got 2 little Shih Tzu dogs. Like You know, can I hang out with my 2 dogs in the morning? Can I go in the winter skiing for a couple hours? And can I go mountain biking or cycling for a couple hours in the summer? That's kind of, if I can do those things and have a beer on my patio every night and, you know, watch the sunset and then grow some cool businesses, that's kind of what's next for me.
That's awesome. I love speaking to people because they've got a lot of the same desires and needs, and it's always like comes down to those simple things. But what I like to see so much is that what those goals look like can often be very different between people. And yet it's like this way of getting there and achieving those things is just like practically sitting on our laps. And like, you know, most people don't know about this yet. So I personally, I hope that this whole coronavirus thing and shifting and people realizing that, you know, there's different ways of doing work, there's different ways of earning income and things that they thought were secure and a way to get to those goals that you mentioned potentially. You know, it's maybe those old ways aren't so good anymore. And so a lot of people are actually going to, I hope, realize that there's ways of getting there quickly, you know, and relatively easily. Obviously, there's all these challenges and obstacles to jump over. It's a learning process, but it's doable. It's achievable. And if there's one thing I want to show out of this, it's like people are doing it. Normal people are doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Are there any other... I mean, you've achieved an amazing goal really quickly to get to where you are. You've got big goals up ahead. Do you think there's any last things looking back from up until now and where you're going ahead? You know, any I don't know, keys or little, I want to say nuggets or skills or experience or something that have actually allowed you to do this so quickly? Anything that just jumps off the top of your head?
Yeah, and this is kind of goes back to mentality. And I know a lot of people talk about mentality, but I think it really is important. It's funny, like, I don't know if people watch like MMA or UFC, but Conor McGregor, who's kind of a character unto itself, the Irish fighter. But I watched a really cool video on him a couple years ago, and it was like a lot of people fantasize about, and this is important to do, to like visualize success and like, what does that look like? What does it feel like? When you get there, what will it be like? Like, that is important, I think. But I think it's also important to visualize the adversity. Because it is going to come. And I feel like there's a little bit more of a bubblegum like entrepreneurship, which only looks at the happy, glossy screenshots when things go well. And that's often what you see publicized. And so it feels like that's what it's going to be like. But you also got to think about, like, in Conor McGregor's case, like, what happens when I get taken down and someone's got me in a chokehold? Like, how am I going to get out of that? Or when I get rocked and I'm like a little bit dazed, like, what is my defense mechanism there? Like, I think just mentally preparing yourself for, you know, your inspection might fail. Your shipment might take longer than you think. It might take you longer to sell than expected. It might sell it faster than you think. Your ACOS may be 60%, not 30%. Like, there's always going to be these incremental speed bumps that will come up. And just like mentally prepare that they're going to happen. And when you mentally like realize that, hey, I'm going to be faced with things I may not even know what exists yet, what's going to come my way. But like having the belief in yourself that, like, no matter what, I'm biting down and like I'm getting through this. Like, I know that that's going to happen to me, and I know it's going to suck, and I know it's going to feel bad when it comes, but I can overcome it, and I will overcome it. And no matter what happens to me, I'm going to get there. So I think that mentality is super important, because they're like, a lot of this honestly is just brute force. Like, if you're half smart, if you're half disciplined, if you learn and have the mentality that you want to go after this thing, half of it is just biting down and like grinding through the stuff that sometimes sucks. So I think that's a big part of it. That's not like glossy for people, but I think you definitely have to come into it with that. And then I would also just say, like, there's again, kind of using the cycling analogy, there's this 4-letter acronym that's kind of popular in cycling. It's called HTFU, and it basically means harden the fuck up. And so it's like, yeah, if it's like raining out, or like you're tired on a climb, or you're suffering, like, harden the fuck up. Like, you're not a victim. I think there's a little bit of that too. Like, you control your own destiny. Things are going to happen to you. You can overcome them. And like, you just got to like get through it and learn how to suffer. So I think that mentality is really important, and like turning it on as a positive, and knowing that things are going to come my way, but like, they're not going to put me down. Like, I'm going to get through this. I think that's incredibly powerful stuff, and has served me well. And I need to draw on that reserve when adversity hits me. And it happens all the time. I'm sure it happens to you, Myles, where like, it's not a road of rainbows all the time, but like, you just got to believe that you can get through it and just like, make it happen. So.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't know, it feels like anything you do in life, it comes back to that mentality. And that's, you're using examples that are completely different to starting an online business, but that's the fact of, nature is that like your mindset ultimately determines almost anything, or at least it can be the limiting factor or the enabling factor.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely. Internal mindset, willpower. What about in terms of resources? Like because the thing is like solo entrepreneurship can be like a kind of difficult game. So where you turn to in terms of resources, support, guidance, like either in your journey up till now or, where you are right now, what sort of resources do you call on, or like communities or networks?
Yeah. Well, I'll just say like you could do it for free for sure. And you could do it without people, like without connecting with Amazon sellers. I mean, you could absolutely take the lone wolf approach to it, and it's totally viable and not necessary. But, and maybe this is a good plug for your program, the FBA Accelerator. But I think having a deep dive community where you can participate in both content that's relevant and new, but also having that like human connection with people. I think that's been really powerful for me. Like it really is a lonely journey. And sometimes it's part to brag, like, hey, here's what I'm doing. But sometimes it's like, hey, I've hit a wall and I'm like, I literally don't know what to do. And this is what's happening to me. And I feel like the world's crumbling in, and like having a place or an outlet to kind of put those questions or concerns out there is valuable. So for me, it's been communities like yours, like your Back in Facebook group has been pretty amazing. And then I also have kind of a mastermind, which I know you suggest and are a part of one yourself, but like a place where people that are a similar level to you, that you can go to kind of compare notes, I think is important. And then having a place where you can help other people out that are maybe below you. And then you can also call on help for people that are above you. I think having that like trifecta of resources is pretty powerful as part of the Amazon journey.
Excellent. I guess you mentioned the Freedom Accelerator plug. What's been your favorite part of being a part of the program? And actually give us a bit of background. Like, so when did you join? Where are you at?
Sure.
What's happened since then in terms of the training program?
Yeah. So I think, I don't know I'll have to check the tape. I think it was probably about a year ago. Maybe it's a little bit longer when I kind of jumped into this. So I had kind of launched my first solo from the ground up Amazon operation. And it was kind of hitting 7 figures, and I was about to but that was a little bit more, I would call, I don't know if like hacky is the way to do it, but like, it wasn't like a cohesive brand. It was successful with the products I launched. And I was thinking about like, hey, for these next brands, I want to kind of make it a little bit more cohesive. So I was just at the point of kind of launching some of those newer brands when I joined the Freedom Accelerator. I think the plug I would say for it is like bar none. And I have other courses that I respect and get value nuggets out of. I think in terms of an end-to-end course, your content is about as top-notch as it gets, from like, hey, how do I create an Amazon account, to how do I do some more sophisticated stuff that 7 and 8 figure and 9 figure sellers do. It's got that spectrum of stuff. So I think that's valuable. I would say it's updated, which is cool. A lot of people they'll design their course, they'll get their initial, couple $100,000 in sales, and then they'll coast, so to speak. I don't think you coast. Like, you're always injecting some new stuff that's relevant for the time, that is deeper level than I think what you get in your YouTube videos. So that's powerful. The tools that you have in there, like your ROI calculator, is like the best out there, and I use it all the time. And it's just I won't get into all the hidden secrets of it, but I think that honestly is worth its weight in the course as well. It's just like it's a super powerful tool to make the right financial decisions. And then just to cap it off, I mean, like, I think why I joined and why I was kind of drawn to you is you're just a genuine guy that I respect, has the knowledge, but is a good human being. And I'm to the point in my life where I want to work with people I like and with people I respect, because I had the choice to who to work with. And you check that box as well. And I think most of the people within your community are that. They're people that you'd want to work with, that you'd want to have a beer with, that are cool and like-minded. So I think it brings that element to it as well. And and your Facebook group is just awesome. I mean, I think when I joined, it was quieter, right? Like, I think I don't know how long your course had been out at that point, but it's like, you know, we talked about this offline too. Like, it takes like 6 to 8 months before you start to really see like putting points on the board. And so I think there was like that delayed factor, but I think around late last summer, maybe fall, it started to really kind of like warm up a little bit. But there's just so many success stories in there, literally on a weekly basis, of people like, hey, I did 30 grand, or I did a 20 grand launch, or my first week is 5 grand, or I've now crested into 7 figures. So I think it's a really high quality community. I'll put it that way, where it's like you can find a home as a newbie Amazon seller, and you can find a home and nuggets of value and a place and a resource to ask questions if you're 7, 8, 9 figures. And so, yeah, it's just been super cool. It kind of feels like you're going to dinner with friends. It's that kind of a vibe within the group. And it's been super cool. And I know that there's been a bunch of like sub masterminds, and like you can go find your own people within that. Like, hey, I'm this level. Who wants to join me? And I think that there's a ton of little sub communities that have cropped up as well that have been pretty cool. So
I've never thought about marketing my course or the community as like a community of people that you want to have a beer with, but I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
There will have to be a bit of injection of beer at some point. I don't know when. We'll work on that. But that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Those words of support. Anyone who's watching this, if you're a student, comment down below. And like you said as well, a really good point is that when you really go through this, you start to understand that it takes time. Like we've talked about time frames multiple times throughout this chat. And it's like, it's hard to accept that though, to accept that reality of this actually takes, you know, if you think it's going to happen like overnight, and then you could wait 6 months, 12 months, like you said, like reinvesting for 18 months. And then it's only this like delayed gratification. But when it does come, it's so satisfying. And I'm super reinvigorated myself personally because of this. Just like, it's been like a wave of like success stories, like obviously yourself included, but like, oh man, if any FBA Freedom Accelerator students are watching this, and you're selling right now and you're doing well, I do plan to get people like yourself on this channel and just like get the word out, basically, that like, I don't know, it's just such an amazing feeling. I won't say any more, but yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. Yeah. So I think let's keep going, eh? If people are still watching, I'm sure they're still enjoying it. What are some things? Now, tell me one thing. If there's one thing that you wish you could have known when you were starting out on Amazon for yourself, what would that one thing be?
Oh man. Honestly, I kind of live my life like no regrets. Like I really don't have a lot of regrets, and you know, the movie played out better than I could have anticipated. So I hate to kind of go back, and even some of the challenges I've had, I actually feel like I was better for it. I would say maybe the one thing I would say that I would probably do differently, and this is the brand that's spitting off probably $2.5 million in revenue, but like building a more cohesive brand, I think I wish I would have done that with the first one. Like to think about the products that you launch in terms of working together and weaving together, and thinking of them in terms of a type of buyer. I think it just makes things easier. And it makes building the community of like doing future launches, it just like lubricates that whole thing and makes it accelerate a lot faster. So I think I'd probably do that. Like I'd be a little bit less hacky about it. Like think about it like a little bit more like a cohesive brand, but at the same time, it's a business that I got to learn a couple different product categories and approaches to it, and a couple different customer types and even like factory types. So I think part of that experience made me who I am. So I don't want to knock like I would do it differently, but if I had to start differently, I think it's just easier if you focus on an audience and a product niche that is cohesive, that you can then build and cultivate, and it makes like future efforts easier. So
awesome. Do you have any last advice for somebody who they're not where you or I are right now? They're sitting on the sidelines. They want to start, or they're thinking about starting an Amazon business. What would you say to that person?
I'll kind of go back to the start of the call and kind of answer 2 questions that I had of myself, but like, why not you? First of all, there's a lot of people less smart, poorer than you, like all the things that have done it. And so give yourself the shot to like, why not you answer that question, and you'll get some value, whether you succeed or have varying forms of success or failure. I would also just say like, there's no better time than now, honestly. Like, you know, the best time was yesterday. And so that would actually, you know what, go back. I'll re-answer my other question. I probably would have started sooner. That would be my biggest regret.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this on the fence, like, you probably should have started yesterday, and like, you owe it to yourself to answer that question, why not me, as soon as possible. So.
Excellent. Nothing to add. That's pretty much, couldn't put it any better. All right, Adam. So if our audience, our audience who's watching this, they want to know more about you, where you've been, and also what you're doing right now with your Amazon business, where can they find you?
So I think kind of a fun little thing, and maybe this answers an earlier question too about what's next for me. I'm actually, I've got a goal this year, starting this next week actually, of putting out a video a week on YouTube. I'm going to do it for a year, kind of zero expectations. I'm not going to try to sell anybody anything for a year. I just want to like go deep behind the scenes of how I've done some of the things with my businesses. So case studies, how I do keyword research, how I look at reviews, how I drive traffic, how I do launches, just kind of like a behind the scenes tour of how somebody with a quasi successful Amazon business is run it. So I think the best thing, and it would be really cool to, kind of weave some audiences, and get some perspectives of Myles people, but hopefully you'll drop a link, but basically Adam Heist. So ADAM space HEIST on YouTube is probably the best way to connect with me. And I'll have Instagram and all that stuff on some links to the videos. So it'd be cool if you guys caught some of those.
There'll be a link down below. First link, that'll be Adam's channel. So everyone, if you're watching this, make sure you go down below, check out Adam's channel. You're going to get a crap ton of value. Go subscribe as well. And yeah, I'm going to subscribe. I look forward to seeing all the good stuff you put out. Cool. As well, Adam has shared so much within the FBA Freedom Accelerator. I'm sure, again, people who are watching this are going to be able to vouch for that. It's just been like amazing to see over the last, whatever it's been, year. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
Once again, Adam, it's been awesome to have you on this channel. Maybe we can do this again. I don't know if you guys want more follow-up or anything. Let us know in the comments down below. I'll speak to you, Adam, inside the student group, and I'll speak to you guys down below and in the next video. Thanks again, Adam. Thank you so much for your time.
Myles, it's been a pleasure. I think one of the coolest parts of this journey for me is honestly like weaving into your community and getting to know you personally. And it's fun, man. Like when you're, this is what life's about. And so it's cool being able to connect with you like this, and happy to have a chat, man. It's been cool.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Honestly, how good was that? How much value did he just give in that, hour-long conversation? I guarantee that if you're still here watching this, you probably got one nugget in that conversation that could completely change how you start and grow your Amazon business. So again, make sure to subscribe to Adam's channel. The link will be down below. Leave me a comment, by the way, if you like this format. If you want me to do something more like this, I can either interview other students who are having successes, or I can just go and interview other people in general who are successfully selling on Amazon. Of course, you're still here now, so make sure to smash that like button to show that you got value out of this video. By the way, if you like the sound of the FBA Freedom Accelerator, the way Adam described it, then make sure to go and click. It'll be one of the first links in the description. You can then go and watch a training video, and from there you can actually apply to see if you'll be a good fit to join the trading program. We're only doing things by application from now on, so I'm only working with people that I actually want to work with. But if you think that might be you, then again, go check out the free training video and everything will be explained there. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Go and subscribe to Adam's channel, and I will see you in the next video.